we have a clear understanding of the structure and purpose of identity in Bitcoin, we can start asking the question, how do we make transactions between one another in Bitcoin? After all, that's the primary goal of the Bitcoin network, to enable secure transactions between any two users in the network. Before with the concept of identity, we'll now be analyzing the idea of a transaction. Take a moment to ask yourself, what makes a transaction valid? For a transaction to be valid, it must have these three components. 1. A proof of ownership, aka a signature. 2. Available and sufficient funds to spend. And 3. A guarantee that no other transaction is using or has used the same funds. Let's understand these criteria in the context of checks and banks. When you want to make a transaction via a check, you have to sign the check to validate it. That's a proof of ownership. The bank then has to verify that you have enough funds in your account, that you have available and sufficient funds for the transaction. They must also ensure that you do not spend the same money more than once, that you cannot spend 2 or more checks, each spending $100 when your account only has $100 in total. To enforce all of these, Bitcoin uses what's known as a UTXO, or Unspent Transaction Output model. Traditionally, when we think of banks, we think of a single account where all our funds are aggregated into one account. For example, after buying $10 worth of burgers and fries, your account goes from $20 to $10. This is not the case with Bitcoin. Accounts are easy for users to understand, but surprisingly difficult for computers when it comes to all the complexity of a decentralized network. There is no longer a central entity to keep track of all the transactions being made by my account, nor a central clock to track when all transactions are being made. If I make 3 different transactions of 5 Bitcoins from an account of only 10 Bitcoins, which of the 2 transactions should go through? How do we ensure that we do not accidentally let all 3 transactions go through? To make transaction processing much easier and more secure, users do not spend from an account. Instead, they spend directly from transactions made to them. An easy way to wrap our heads around this unintuitive model is to think about UTXOs as piggy banks. Each time a transaction is made to us, we put all the money into an UTXO or piggy bank. When we want to spend money, we break open that piggy bank, spend whatever we like, and then put the rest into another piggy bank. It's hard to put a piggy bank's shattered pieces back together, of course. This way, the complexity of checking for transaction validity goes down. Instead of asking the more difficult question, is this account trying to, at this time, spend more money than it owns across multiple transactions? We only need to ask, does this single piggy bank have enough funds? On the other hand, the complexity of keeping track of one's own funds goes up, as each of these various piggy banks needs to be secured and tracked individually. And the amount of Bitcoin you own is calculated by summing up the value of each of your piggy banks, or UTXOs.